Welcome into the roundtable. I'm Brad Wakai. That is my co-host, Tyson Gentry. We are back talking about the first round of the NBA playoffs, Tyson. There's been some interesting games. There's been some fun games. There's ones that I want to put you to sleep, and that's just kind of how it goes in the NBA playoffs. But we wanted to do an early check-in, just where we're at, and we are recording on a Wednesday here, right before the Lakers and the Grizzlies tip off. So we're not going to have any game two analysis, potentially by the time you see this. We're just going to look at the series overall, obviously the Morant injury, things like that. But really want to start breaking down some of these series and kind of give our early thoughts on it, Tyson. I mean, I know you said on our preview going in that you weren't really feeling the NBA kind of coming into this and just kind of just how it worked out on the calendar. I mean, have any of these series kind of gotten you back into NBA playoff mode?
Oh, dude, all of them. That's the way that it works, right? Like, I wasn't out on the NBA. It's been the hardest year for me to watch, I think. But once playoff time comes and then, like, the intensity's back and guys are giving a shit again. Because that last month of the NBA season, no matter who you're a fan of, like, half the teams want to lose on purpose. And then the other half aren't playing their stars. And then you get, like, four teams really vying for playoff position. And so you just have a bunch of crap games for pretty much all of March is what it feels like. And then all of a sudden it's like, intensity ratchets up to 1,000. And thankfully, man, like there are some teams here that we're talking about that they needed a little juice. They needed that little get up in their step.
Yeah, 100%. And so let's dive right in here. The Kings are handling the Warriors in this series. They're up 2-0. They took care of business at home in Sacramento. And coming into this one, we're like, is it really something that the Kings can handle? Facing the defending champions, we knew the struggles that the Warriors had on the road. But could the Kings handle this type of environment? Handle the pressure of hosting a playoff game? They hadn't had one in 16 years. And this is an extremely young team with the coach and Mike Brown. Also, shout out for winning Coach of the Year, first time unanimous. So great on him. That was well deserved. But it was something like the Warriors felt like they were starting to get healthy, felt like they're ready to flip the switch. And the Kings have just put them away in the first two games and are up 2-0, handling home court and making sure that the Warriors have to hold serve back in Golden State.
And this was like, you can talk about both sides of the coin here. This is the Kings in their first playoff series in a million years, and the juices are flowing in Sacramento, and they come out hot at home. And the Warriors, notorious this year, are like the worst good team in the NBA on the road. It's atrocious. Brad, the Kings are closing games, and I think that's like way more important to me than the Warriors are on the road. They'll figure it out when they go home. Like these aren't blowouts in the fourth quarter, especially like both of them really. But game one comes down to Andrew Wiggins missing a 3-pointer in the corner. The reality was that the Kings played better than the Warriors for the final 6 minutes, and that happened again. And now it started to get interesting because when it happens once, it's like, okay, game one, like the Kings are juiced. Second game, Malik Monk makes 100 free throws in a row. They don't miss, right, coming down the stretch. And then it's, now you start to get a little nervous. And it's the Warriors, and all the respect in the world and all that stuff is deserved because the dynasty that they've built. 2-0 is a lot tougher than I think most fans realize to come back from. Like when the Bucks come back 2-0 to win the finals a couple years ago, it was a big deal, right? And when teams are down 2-0, I don't have the number in front of me, but you're staring down the barrel of losing this series and losing it quicker than people imagine. I think Golden State will bounce back a little bit, but damn it, De'Aaron Fox has been impressive. And if Sabonis' ribs are okay, it's going to be a long, long series for Golden State.
Yeah, and De'Aaron Fox is the most clutch player in the NBA by their metrics. He scored the most fourth quarter points as well. And so we knew he was special, Tyson. You and I, maybe the casual basketball fan did not, especially playing out in Sacramento.
So I was thinking about this earlier today, and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts. I remember De'Aaron Fox, the first time I heard his name was when he busted Lonzo Ball's ass in high school. Is that like when you found out about him?
Yeah, I think Ball is Life, right? Like the mixtape.
Something like that,
I think
yeah.
that's really, and it was just like, man, this guy is like small in high school, extremely like lanky, had these long arms, but super athletic. I'm like, man, this guy, he may be the fastest person I've ever seen on a basketball court. It's super electric. And, obviously did the one and done thing at Kentucky. And I guess he had a good season at Kentucky, but nothing like a Anthony Davis or a Zion or anything like that. And he's just continued to improve in the NBA. It's been an awesome meteoric rise to see.
Oh, he's nasty, man. And he gets to the bucket like it's crazy because when you watch most guards that are his size, and even like John Wall, because that's who everyone kind of wants to like comp him to because of the
Right.
speed that you mentioned with the ball. Like he's snatching back at the free throw line. He's not scared of a 15-foot jump shot, where it seems like everyone else of that build is like, I have to get to the rim. And so like that presents a whole new set of challenges that, to be honest, and Golden State's beaten everybody for 5, 6, 7 years now. There's not a lot of guards playing that style of basketball. And this might just be a right time, right place kind of thing for a guy like De'Aaron Fox.
And the Warriors are playing horrendous pick and roll defense. They're doing drop coverage on De'Aaron Fox, daring him to shoot, and he's been a much more willing and able shooter this season, and he's making the Warriors pay. That's for sure. But let's we'll keep breaking the series down, but we got to talk about the elephant in the room, and that's the Draymond Green suspension. And you mentioned it with the Sabonis injury. Let me just give my take off the top here. I think this is a weak suspension by the NBA. I do not think what Draymond Green did warranted being suspended for a crucial game 3. With that said, definitely deserved to be kicked out of that game. You can't stomp on somebody. Like I hear all the people, well, if Sabonis didn't grab his leg, he wouldn't have stomped on him.
He stomped afterwards.
He stomped him. Like, you can't do that. Like if he just didn't do it, he wouldn't have acted. He wouldn't have retaliated that way. It's still a retaliation. So you got to be smarter than that if you're Draymond. And I know he's saying, well, I've been getting my legs grabbed and this and that. Yeah, dude. But you are a veteran in this league. Like, you have a history of these unsportsmanlike acts. You have a history of doing things that the league has frowned upon because you've clearly gotten suspended. You've gotten technical fouls and been thrown out of games multiple times. And this was just one of those instances where he lost his cool and got thrown out of the game. And I think cost the Warriors down the stretch in that one because it was a difference maker, especially in a close game, to have someone like Draymond Green missing. But with that said, I think it should have just been, that was a big enough punishment to kick him out of that game. I think taking it to this crucial game 3 and suspending him for that based on previous acts, that's where I'm like, come on, really? Are we doing that seriously?
Well, that's how the NBA works, right? It's always they go off the history of the player more times than just like the content of their actions. Draymond, your leg was grabbed because 2 weeks ago you kicked somebody in the fucking head. That's why Sabonis, he didn't want to get kicked in the head. So what did you do? You turned around and you stomped on him, right? And so the suspension might be weak or whatever, but at a certain point, this guy's 34 years old or whatever. Like when you kick Steven Adams in the nuts twice and the Warriors are fresh faced and we don't really care, then it's like, oh man, I can't believe Draymond did that. And then when you get kicked out of the NBA Finals for hitting LeBron James, and lose your team that series pretty much. Like that was really the main swing in that NBA Finals. And then to still be doing this 6 years down the road, I don't care about the suspension. I don't care about the rest of that. Dude, you're doing stuff for podcast listens and video hits. Like you're creating content on the court so you can get more views. If you want to win, stay in the game, keep your head. And like we sound stupid, right? Because we're sitting here not playing in the NBA saying all these things. I've seen this now with this dude for a decade. Like it's a lot of bark. And then when it comes time to bite, Draymond likes to eat needles, right? He's not fighting anybody. He wants to get you to the point where you get kicked out. But something switched in the last like 3 seasons where guys aren't reacting to him the way that they used to. And now he's getting pissed. And he's taking it out in ways that aren't conducive to good basketball, aren't conducive to winning, aren't conducive to the player that he was during their magical run. And not to say that he's not that player anymore, because like he's still the guy that was on the team that won a finals last year. So for as much triple single hate and all that stuff he gets, he's super, super important. You can't do that, dude. You're way too old to be doing that. When you're 26, it's like, oh man, he's learning. When you're at this stage and you have that many rings and that many trophies on the mantle and you're still doing this shit, it's like, dude, you got to grow up at some point.
Yeah, and the only person he's like fought that we've seen was his teammate Jordan Poole, who's like an
and that wasn't a fight.
Guy
that wasn't a fight. That was like somebody standing still and getting punched in the face.
Yeah, and so I know people don't like Draymond Green. I'm one of the few, it seems, that likes him. Like I like Draymond Green. I love how he plays the game of basketball. I don't think everybody needs to be Steph Curry or Giannis or Joel Embiid or LeBron for that matter. Like people love Dennis Rodman, but we look at Dennis Rodman now, like people love him. Like there's a lot of people who hated Dennis back then. I think Draymond Green will get his flowers eventually when it's all said and done. But just in the moment, I know a lot of people don't like him and they think he carries himself poorly and things like that. And when he's doing the antics after he stepped on him, and clearly Sabonis is down hurt, and I know people are like, wow, he's embellishing it. I mean, Draymond Green's a big boy, man. He stomped on his chest. So, like, I don't know if he's milking it a little bit. It's not like Sabonis is, pretty jacked or anything. He's got a lot of skin and bone on him. So, I don't know. But when he's running around the center of the court, putting his hand up to his ear and doing stuff like that, that's when I get people get rubbed the wrong way by him. And it's like a WWE thing, right? He's playing the villain. He knows the role he's had. And I was listening to a podcast with Mark Stein and Chris Haynes, and he came on and he said, a lot of the stuff he does is to fire his teammates up, because the Warriors looked dead in that, man. Like, they were not hitting shots. And when they were, it was only to like stop a Kings run. I think maybe he thought in part, like, we got to get my team fired up because it's worked in the past. Clearly it didn't in that one. It looked like the Kings were able to handle the Warriors in game 2. But let's go back because I think, the Draymond suspension is going to obviously be the cloud over everything, which I think sucks because it's going to take away from what the Kings have been doing, which is punking the Warriors, man. Like, they've looked great. They handled exactly what they needed to do at home. The first game, it was like, man, the Kings just want to outscore you. The second game, Tyson, this is where I'm super impressed. It was about defense for the Kings, something we hadn't seen all year. And that's what really made me look at them and be like, okay, now they're starting to play playoff basketball. Now they may actually have a shot to beat the Warriors here.
Time to grow up. Like, if you're Jonathan Kuminga, got to go. You got to go now because you had 8 minutes or 10 minutes in game 1 with 8 points. And you have 4 minutes in game 2. Have to use them if you're Golden State. Like, that's your kind of Swiss Army knife that you have left, right? It's not the OG like Draymond Green. It's probably a gas station one, really. But sometimes those do the job, and you have to step up and you have to do it. He has to fill that role because if he doesn't, Golden State is a worse team without Draymond Green on the court. That's inarguable, really. They're a worse team without his ability to just kind of do the dirty work, and somebody has to step up and do that. And they got a couple guys that want to do the dirty work, but it just looks like a lot of dudes right now. They're looking around like, this is the Kings. Like, what? We should be winning. Like, what are we doing? Game 1, like Steph Curry's one-handed little floater from the top of the 3. I thought everyone was like, what are you making fun of Steph Curry about for choosing that shot? He makes 1,000 of those in practice every day, probably. But they have to go, man. And like, if they don't get up and go, like, the Kings are going to jump on them because this is an opportunistic group with a coach who's done a really good job this year. And real quick, dude, we talked about Mike Brown. So he coached Duncan, Kobe, LeBron, KD, Curry. That's a pretty solid resume, man. And I didn't even realize that until today. But if he can pull this upset off, like, this is – we talked about it last year. It kind of felt like a changing of the guard, but this is really how it works, right? Is the upstart team that nobody sees coming can take down Golden State, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, we're not scared of you. Because the guys talk all the time. Oh, we're not worried about the Warriors. Yeah, the fuck you are. Like, when you're locked into a gym with them for 7 games, you're scared. And if Sacramento is the team to take them out, I think we're moving into a new era.
It'd be definitely interesting. And with that being said, they held serve at home. That's what you're supposed to do in a series. You're supposed to win on your home court. Now the Warriors have a chance to do the same. And if they do, it's 2-2 going back to Sacramento, best of 3, defending champs against a team who hasn't been there in 16 years. So just keep that in mind as this is early. This is why we're doing this analysis early. We could be talking a completely different situation if the Warriors take care of business at home in about a week or so. So let's move on here. That was a big segment. Obviously the most interesting thing happening right now between the Warriors and the Kings, but I think this is going to be an awesome series. Clippers, Suns are in a dogfight. And we talked about it. We like the Clippers. They were getting 2.5 games in the gambling market in the series price. We said that's way too many because the Clippers know their role. On every single person on that roster knows what their role is. Now the Suns have all the talent in the world. They have the roster that should knife through the NBA. But it still feels like they're figuring each other out, right? Like in the game 1 they lost. Durant just seems like he's floating around. Do I be aggressive here? When do I take my shot? Booker, do I get the ball? Do I not? Is it still Chris Paul pick and roll time? In game 2, it looked like they figured it out a bit. Like that was much more, okay, we're going to have our two wings on the side, Chris roll, pick and roll. If you're just going to do drop coverage against Chris Paul, I don't care if he's 50 years old. Good luck. He's going to carve you up. And so and you said before we jumped on here, that fourth quarter Suns team was more of what I think we're going to expect to see going forward.
I mean, in all reality, and it feels weird, but that's how they need to play. It needs to go. Chris gets to make some decisions, and then it's Booker time, and then it's Kevin Durant time, and they alternate. Right. The depth thing is a huge talking point right now for people. I'm not backing off the take. I still think it's Monty Williams rotations. Game one, Terrence Ross gets 4 minutes, inexcusable. TJ Warren needs to get some burn. Like that's the way it works. Like you can't trade for this guy, a bucket getter, and then have nobody on the court who can get buckets. He's got to get some run. I thought rotations were better for Phoenix in game two. Russell Westbrook is going to win finals MVP at this rate. Like that's the way this thing is looking. This dude is trying so hard, and it's vintage, right? This is not Lakers Russell Westbrook, sorry, or Wizards or whoever. Like this is a guy that is okay. It's winning time. I'm going to do the little things, and I'm gonna get it going. We finally had a Kawhi Leonard sighting. It was brief, like it was 48 minutes. And he played well in game two, but it wasn't the same guy, right?
No, he was ridiculous in game one.
Yeah, that looked like, oh yeah, he's a top 5 player in the world. And if they get him 3 times in the series, the Clippers are going to win. That's how it's going to work. Phoenix, like you said, is still figuring each other out. Brad, the biggest thing that happened in game two was Kevin Durant turned and yelled at DeAndre Ayton. I think that might be something going forward that we get to see, because for the 8 games that they played together, it was all sunshine and rainbows. We don't lose. Yep. This is fun. And then like he turned and he was pissed. You got to get you have to grab the ball to get rebounds. You can't just jump really high. And if he's going to be on DeAndre Ayton's ass, if it works, Phoenix will turn this thing around. And if it doesn't, quick.
It's a bad matchup for the Suns overall when you look at it. I mean, they have a guy in Kawhi Leonard who can put the clamps on Kevin Durant, and we've seen that so far. And when I say put the clamps on him, he's not holding them to 2 of 20. You know, it's Kevin Durant, but he's going to make him work, and he has. Like it's been tough sledding, and the Clippers have been allowed to be physical with Kevin Durant, and that's one of the biggest factors here. But this is the biggest factor I think that we saw that was a change from game 1 to 2. Advanced analytics from cleaning the glass, they had I mean, this is just insane to me. They had an effective field goal percentage of 65.9%, which is in the 97th percentile of games that we've seen through the playoffs and through all the other games we've seen this season. And that's what we're looking at, right? Like when we talk about the ceiling of the Suns, it's stuff like that. Chris Paul, you're playing drop coverage. He gets to his elbow. I don't care how old he is. He's hitting that shot on the little fader. Okay, now you're going to try to blitz him. Okay, he's going to find a Kevin Durant. He's going to find a Booker, and Booker can go one-on-one with anybody, especially when you can't throw a double because KD's off the wing. Little things like that you start to notice. If they can like figure that stuff out, like how do we want to run this? How do we want to attack this? Because I don't think it can all be Chris Paul at this point in his career either. Like there's going to have to be some of that with Durant getting a high pick and roll. He just can't go one-on-one, I don't think, in this stage, especially from the top of the key. Like, if you space it out for him on the elbow, that's an issue for any defense. I don't care. He could be 60 years old in the YMCA. People are going to have a hard time guarding him. But right now, he's having a hard time attacking this defense from the perimeter. I think that's where the Booker thing comes in, and that's what's going to make the Suns so hard to guard. But the Clippers are a matchup nightmare for the Suns team because they have so many wing players and aggressive people who attack the glass. Zubats and Mason Plumlee are athletes, and maybe Plumlee more of an athlete than Zubats, but Zubats knows how to rebound and knows what to do. Man. He's a ball player. He knows how to play basketball. And then Norman Powell, just obviously Kawhi Leonard off the wing, and Russell Westbrook. They are relentless coming at you and coming downhill. That's why I think if the Suns get past this series against the Clippers, they figure out how to play, how to gel in the playoffs together. I don't know if they're going to lose another series, and I think they're going to win the NBA championship no matter who they face, because on paper, this is the worst matchup for them.
Yeah, and this seems to be a fairly common theme, honestly, with the NBA, where sometimes you get your hardest matchup right out the gate, and it's different for everybody. But on the flip side, with the Clippers, feels like everybody just forgot this was the team preseason that most pundits and talking heads and people that like are really involved were like, yeah, if the Clippers don't win the title this year, I'll be surprised. And we're looking at them now without Paul George, and like they're putting up against everybody's new favorite, right? This is everybody's. The Suns are going to win the title according to everybody. And they're without Paul George, and he's not a 2 on a championship team, maybe right now, but like they could sure use him. But they're staying in games. They're as deep as we all said they were going to be before the year, right? They're as well coached as everybody thought they were going to be, and they're physical as all hell. And I think that those things, like if you mentioned Dogfight here in the bottom, like when you get into a fight, I think the Los Angeles Clippers are the team in the West that can win fights. Like it's not Memphis as much as they want to pretend it is. It's not Phoenix. It's not LA. It's not the Nuggets. I think the Clippers are the team that like, hey man, if we turn this into 95-90, nobody's beating us. And that seems to be a little bit of the goal. Monty helped him out in game 1, and Kevin Durant getting 7% of the usage rate in clutch time in game 1 was just a complete organizational failure for Phoenix. They figured that out in game 2, but that's like they had to shoot, like you said, 65% effective field goal percentage to get them out of there yesterday. And at no point until probably 3.5, 4 minutes left where you're like, okay, you could breathe now as a Suns fan. This one's over. The Clippers are going to stay. They're going to be here, man.
Oh, yeah. They're going to be here. And they stole one on the road early. Almost stole 2. I mean, the Suns, they got a little comfortable towards the end there, and it felt like, the Clippers were doing an uphill battle and throughout that entire fourth quarter. But it's going back to LA. It's going back to LA. Can the Suns flip home court advantage? That's something to be seen. Oh, and I did want to address something because we said, the bench isn't going to be an issue with the scoring. The reason why people are talking about the lack of scoring on the Suns bench, we didn't expect Torrey Craig to be inserted back into the starting lineup. We still thought he was going to be coming off the bench for the Suns. That's something that Monty, thought, like, let's just run my best 5 out there.
It worked.
I don't know if that's going to be a major impact, Tyson. I know people are like the bench scoring difference, this and that. For me, I don't care. People are talking about usage minutes. Like they're running out there 40 minutes a night. Guys, there's not 82 games right now. You have to play and win. Like this is what these guys play for. Like the usage and all that stuff, minutes wise, I get it. Throw that out the window. Like this is the playoffs now. You can't complain about these guys don't play enough during the regular season and in the postseason when they actually play the minutes you want them to play. Why are they playing so many minutes? Like they're going to get tired. So I don't know. That's just some of the stuff that drives me crazy. Let's transition to another LA team, and it's the Lakers. They beat the Grizz on the road in game 1. Now, there's a couple different things kind of centering around this series that I think is interesting. And let's start here. Let's talk about the Morant injury. He had a hand injury coming in. Nasty fall. Looked like he bent his fingers back. It was weird. He didn't break anything. Just a lot of pain in his hand. We've seen this with the Grizzlies, though, Tyson. They have the ability to win without Morant. And game 2 is currently going on right now as we're recording this. So we're not sure what the outcome is going to be there. Obviously, if the Grizz go down 0-2 and they lost those 2 games on their home floor, they're going home and they're packing it up. It's going to be a quick series by all intents and purposes. But it's just, man, oh man, you kind of feel bad for him with the stuff he's been going through, right? The Morant thing, but I mean, at the same time, it's got to be next man up in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to feel bad when a lot of the stuff is self-inflicted, but injuries are different, right? And you never want to see, especially somebody his caliber, not be able to play and not be able to play to their standards. It's a bummer because, like, I wanted to watch him put somebody on a poster at least a couple times throughout the series, and now I don't know if I'm going to get to see that. This is playoff basketball. This is, like, all that you talk about and all that you want as Memphis. You're in it now. Like this is the way of the road. This is the way it works. How many times over the last decade have there been Steph Curry misses a playoff game, Klay Thompson can't go, Chris Paul's hurt, James Harden's not ready to play, Embiid's hurt, Jamal Murray misses the whole thing. Everybody else has to go through it too. And it sucks that this is round 1, right? And like right off rip, this is right as soon as you get into it. They were dealing without him to end the season. And so it's not like the biggest change in the world to go back, but the intensity has to be higher. You can't say championship or bust and then play like you're happy to be there. That's not how this works. So if it's championship or bust, then Desmond Bane and Dylan Brooks and Jaren Jackson Jr., who was awesome in game 1, and all those guys just have to be a little better because they don't have to be great to beat the Lakers. They just have to be better than the Lakers. And I think there's a pretty big distinction between that and great. But you can't do all this shit talking and then put your tail between your legs when things get tough. You have to get out there and play.
Yeah, and that'll move us into this. I mean, are the Lakers legit? I mean, a lot of people, the pundits on TV, people on social media, and not just Lakers fans, like basketball fans are like, the Lakers are a 2 seed disguised as a 7 seed right now. So, obviously the question, are they legit? I think this is a big test for the Lakers. I really do. And they won game 1 on the road, then everybody's like, wow, they're look at them. I don't know how good the Grizzlies are. To be completely honest, it still feels like they're young. They're learning how to play in this league. Like, they had a meteoric rise last season. I think it jumped our expectations for them extremely high. And so when they don't meet that, we're kind of confused by it. When in reality, like, you have to go through these growing pains in this league. Like, that's how it works. And so the Lakers had a great trade deadline. Completely revamped their roster, turned into an actual legitimate basketball team instead of old people on the team like 2-3 years ago, into an absolutely horrendous bench and expecting glass man Davis to carry them and old man LeBron. Like, that just wasn't a feasible front office plan. Plinkett did a great job at the deadline, man. Like, they got some dudes on that team. And with the emergence of Austin Reeves at the guard position, they look like a legit contender. I still think it may be fool's gold with this team, Tyson. I really do. And they may prove me wrong and make me eat my words, because I am not a believer in the Los Angeles Lakers as somebody who can legitimately win the title this year. Mainly, it is due to, I don't think Anthony Davis is going to be able to stay healthy. I'm not quite sure how effective LeBron can be on a day-to-day basis. And I think there are teams in the West that are just flat out better than the Lakers.
Well, I'm not even going to talk about the LeBron and AD stuff, because I think it's a little bit bigger than that when it comes to Lakers. Like, we are all freaking out right now about Reeves and about Hachimura, and like, they played awesome in game 1. NBA playoff history is littered with dudes who played really well in one playoff game in a series on a team that didn't win the series or didn't make any noise in the next round. To win an NBA championship, Austin Reeves has to do that 25 times if the Lakers want to get to where they want to get to. And don't get confused by the fact they were a 7th seed or they were looking like they were going to miss the playoffs for a little while. Whenever you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis on your team, you are trying to win an NBA championship. They don't give a shit that they like, oh, yeah, the play-in, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter to us. We're here to win a championship. And so to win that title, those guys have to be really good 25 more times. And that's what I don't buy. That's the part to me where, like, I think LeBron is still good enough to be effective all the way throughout the playoffs. If Anthony Davis is healthy, like, we've seen it. People get confused sometimes with all the hate that he gets and act like he's not even a top 25 player.
He's great.
Like, this dude's special. Yeah, he's special, man. But it's the others. And, like, they had a great deadline, and all these guys are fun, and they close the season really hard, and they're on every Instagram post. 25 more times is just – it's hard for me to imagine right now that this dude with the mop on his head, who was balling out of control at Oklahoma, like when we all learned about him, I didn't look at that guy and go, man, he could be like the 3 on an NBA championship team. And I don't look at him now and think, damn, like, that dude's going to be the reason the Lakers win a championship.
LeBron was the 4th best player when the Lakers won game 1 of the series. If that happens, then they can win a championship.
They're sweeping everybody. 16 games.
Because if you're going to get what Anthony Davis provided defensively and then on offense in game 1, that's going to be hard to beat. And then the Reeves is closing the game out. Austin Reeves, like, LeBron's barely touching it. Like, he's just in pick and roll. He's shutting it out. Like you said, we both have our questions if that's going to be it going forward. The Grizz, man, if they lose this one, there's going to be some chatter about what they need to do, because I get it. People like Dillon Brooks, and he kind of brings that same type of attitude that, a Draymond Green type of player does. Draymond Green is an immensely better player than Dillon Brooks.
Yeah, it's not even close.
He does way more than Dillon Brooks. He's a way better defender. And if you're going to be running Brooks out there, like he's supposed to be like your top defender on your team besides Jaren Jackson Jr. I saw him get torched that entire game in game 1, man. Like, and he could come back and have a great series, right? We're just reacting to what we saw. But again, if that's going to be one of your impact guys, if you're the Grizzlies, and he was, I think, the biggest plus, or maybe he wasn't the biggest plus minus, but I think the second or third
It was
highest
close.
plus negative for the Grizzlies in that game. That's not a good sign. That's really not. And so that's where we're at so far in this series. It was a great game one for the Lakers. Like they stole one on the road. They did what they needed to do. They shot extremely well. I mean, 62% effective field goal percentage, 89th percentile, 128 points per possession, 92nd percentile. Can they sustain this? We know they've been up and down all year. That's the question marks that I think we both have about this Lakers team, especially when we get into the playoffs where everything slows down a bit and everything matters a lot more.
And I wanted to touch on one thing before we get out of the series.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a point for after the series, but if NBA Twitter and like all that stuff starts applying pressure to the Grizzlies, like they have to change. I mean, I'm the biggest Grizzlies hater in the world. This is where the team was supposed to be. Like they're on track. And maybe they need upgrades around the edges and stuff, but
Yes.
it's like they're not a title team, and they weren't a title team at the beginning of the year. And so to trick yourself into now, like, oh man, they dropped the game to the Lakers, they need to get rid of this guy and do this. It's like, man, they need to just take stock in what they have and just improve around the edges because the core is good, man.
Right. That's it. Like, let's not panic. I know NBA Twitter loves to do that, and it's all like, oh, but no, it's just, okay, this is where we're at. Where can we make upgrades and go from there? I mean, Brandon Clark's out, for Christ's sake. Steven Adams out. Like, there's injuries. So you'll figure it out if you don't get past this. And, like we said, 2 years ago, we were looking at them like, wow, it's crazy how good they are. Like, they were a surprise. Now you don't win a series. Panic all over an NBA Twitter. It's crazy, but
I love it.
Let's get to something here. And this is a series that we had circled, and I think it's delivered so far. They still lost to the Knicks, right? Like, Donovan Mitchell was unbelievable. Donovan Mitchell was elite. There was playoff Mitchell like we expected, yet they couldn't close the deal. And then in game two, that's what we expected out of this Cavaliers defense was ridiculously good. The Knicks just couldn't figure out their offense. It was a lot. Jalen Brunson kind of got it going, but not quite enough. And now it's 1-1. We're heading back to the Garden where it feels like crazy performances always happen.
Yeah, this is like the most excited I've been for just a random game three, right? Because which one of these guys are going to come out and drop 40? I think, Brad, like, for some reason, we just decided as a bit of like a community to just kind of let RJ Barrett skate a little bit, like compared with his peers, right? Zion goes 1, that's all the news. John Morant goes 2 and takes the league over, and then RJ goes 3, and it's like, oh, the Knicks suck. And then they get to the playoffs with Julius Randle as their best player, and it's like, well, RJ's learning. Time for learning is over, brother. Are you that dude that was leading Canada to like silver medals or gold medals or whatever in the under 20 bracket of international basketball, or are you just a good NBA player? And I kind of think he might just be a good NBA player, Brad. It sucks because like I was so hyped for this dude coming out of high school. Going to Duke and then what he's become. But the Knicks as a whole, like, there's not a whole lot of, like, Josh Hart needs to be a little better. Mitchell Robinson is Mitchell Robinson. Like, what you're getting from these guys mostly night in and night out. Whereas with Cleveland, it's like you get to be surprised by some of these guys and what they're able to do. Like Darius Garland trying to dunk on people.
Yeah.
I've never seen him do that before. I still think game one might have been a bit of an anomaly, but like the Cavs have to do something game over game to control Julius Randle, which is such a weird sentence from where this dude's career has been and where he's at now. But like this is like a second team All NBA guy, and he's liable to go for 40. And Mobley, Allen, all these guys, they have to be really good to play against him. And that might take some energy. Luckily for the Cleveland Cavaliers, man, this team is so young and they're just jumping and they're bouncy and everything's fun in Cleveland right now until it's not, right? And I'm a little worried that they're susceptible to get bullied. whether it's by the Knicks or by a different team over there in the Eastern Conference. But game one showed me a little bit of a chip in the armor that I didn't really know was there in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because they're a young team, right? Like they still have these growing pains. Like we talk about it with the Grizzlies. I mean, that's who this Cavaliers team is. Like they had a good season last year. They wanted to go get better and got Donovan Mitchell, but you don't just add somebody and immediately just okay, now you're beating the Bucks. Now you're beating the Sixers who have been on their own grind for a while. Now you're beating the Celtics who were in the championship last year. And they're running into a Knicks team, and it's a team that should give them challenges, I think. Like this Knicks team, it's a good Knicks team. Like it's not the joke team that we're all like, wow, the Knicks suck. Like let's make fun of them. Like, no, they have solid players, like legit players, especially when you add Brunson. Like, Randall no longer is your best player. He's your number two. Barrett's no longer your number two. He's your number three, supposedly. And you kind of go from there. But let me just address your RJ Barrett point. He was 2 for 12 in game one. 4 for 13 in game two. Like that's just not good enough. That's just not acceptable, right? Like if you're supposed to be the guy, like you said. I mean, they said if he would have come out in high school to the draft, he would have been the number 1 overall pick. Like that's the expectations this guy has on his shoulders, and he just hasn't been very good. And I think this is the concerning thing if you're the Knicks, Tyson. In game one, when they beat the Cleveland Cavs, 107.4 points per possession. That was the 35th percentile. 46.6 efficient field goal percentage or effective field goal percentage. I'm sorry. That was 14th. Like that's not enough offense, like making you really be like, oh man, this is a team that can go far. This is a team that can win really, because here's the gross part. Here was their effective field goal percentage in game two when they got blitzed by the Cavs. It was 40.5%, which is in the 0th percentile.
Oh my God.
Like we're looking at this team, and besides Brunson, Randall's banged up. RJ Barrett's not shooting very well. And I know Josh Hart had a good game one. He was not effective game two. Obviously, he was hurt as well with his ankle. It makes you kind of scratch your head. Who are the playmakers on this team? And then when you have that type of roster in place against this elite Cleveland Cavaliers defense who matches up well with what the Knicks want to do offensively, it's going to be a hard road for the Knicks. So I think the roller coaster is for our header here. If you're watching on YouTube, Knicks high game one. Woo, got it. Look how good they look. But you kind of look at the stats. You're like, I don't know if it can happen. And in game two, boom, the crash comes down. Now it's going to be, oh, wait, we stole one on the road. We're back in New York. Here we go. And then it could come crashing down again. Because I think the Cavs are just a better team than the Knicks. They have been all year. I think they match up extremely well with them on paper, and I expect them to get past the Knicks. But it's still going to be a fun series because these two teams are built to test each other.
Oh, it feels like we're in the 90s. Like you're building teams to play against somebody else specifically, and that's almost like what we got. The real difference, Brad, is like the Cavs just have two guys. Like on the Knicks, you have Brunson and you have Randall, and they can both get 30, but they're not probably getting 30 on the same night, right? And in Cleveland, it's like Garland and Mitchell can both go for 30 at any moment, and they can do it at the same time. And that's just a different gear than the New York Knicks have. And there's not really much else as far as like points that you're going to find on Cleveland. Like Karis LeVert, he got 24 yesterday. That's awesome, but you can't rely on him to go for 25 a game in the playoffs. Would be really cool if you could. You just can't. Evan Mobley, like if he gets you 20, you're ecstatic, right? But the Knicks have two guys, and then after that, you're hoping for Hartenstein to score 15, or Obi Toppin for some reason is getting 15 minutes a game, and you're hoping those go well. Mitchell Robinson can't score. There's a difference in ceilings here that might just become a little bit more evident as the series goes on.
Yeah, 100%. And so we're kind of ramping down here. Kind of started high, and we're going to end with some of the ones that aren't as interesting. Bucks Heat injuries. That's really the thing that's driving this, right? Like Giannis gets hurt, the Heat win game one. Here you go, 68.5% effective field goal percentage in game one. They scored 130 points, a franchise record for the Miami Heat.
Well, they've never even had any good players. So what does that mean?
Yeah, I think that if you want to talk about fluky games, that's one of them to me. think the Bucks were. I mean, they've won games without Giannis, but I think in a situation like that, you're like, oh man, is he coming back? Is he not? Like, what's going on here? Oh, he's out. How do we want to play this? And the Heat got hot, and they did what they needed to do. Like, they won the game. Like, you can't fault them for that. But the Tyler Hero broken hand, that is a major, major loss to me, because he is the second leading scorer on the team. He's a shot creator. That's just you're gonna have to play Duncan Robinson now, and the reason why he doesn't play is because he's not good on defense. Like, Middleton and Drew Holiday can attack him. Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, like, it could get ugly for the Heat in this series, even without Giannis. And I think that really they're sitting him because they're at home. I think they're confident they'll win this game at home without Giannis, and then they'll just have him healthy to go down and steal 2 down in Milwaukee and make quick work of this thing.
Yeah, he played super good in game one. They played really well, and it was impressive. This is like, you talk about roller coasters with the last series. The Heat are a roller coaster in and of themselves, because we don't know if we're getting 35 and 10 from Jimmy, or we're getting 22 and 22-9 and something for Bam, or if Bam's going to take 4 shots. And this Kevin Love can't hit a 3. He was awesome actually in game one. I think he had like 18 points. Like, it's the variance in the Miami Heat performances is just so much greater than it is in Milwaukee with or without Giannis. Like, you kind of know going into every game with Milwaukee, you're probably going to get 115 points. Like, the other team's probably going to struggle to score and let the chips fall where they may. And game one, you just got beat. I don't think it's time to panic or worry or anything like that. But if you're the Heat, man, you got to feel at least a little good. Even with the injuries and all that stuff, you have to at least feel like, okay, we woke them up. Like, they know we're here. And that's kind of the Heat's goal, right? Is like, they don't knock, they kick the door in. And they did that game.
Yeah. 100%. And they're a physical team. Like, they know how to play. Spoelstra's an amazing coach. Like, I'm not counting the Heat out of this, like, by me. Like, I think there could be games in this that come down to 5-6 points in the series, especially back in Miami. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think the Bucks are going to be threatened by the Heat, even down 1. Like, the Bucks are just a better team. Like, we're talking about a bunch of guys who were undrafted on the Heat roster, and then we're talking about uber talented players on the Bucks. It's just not the same. And I know playoff Jimmy, he takes his game to the next level. Like, we see that repeatedly. But like you said, we don't know what version's coming from this Heat team, and I think that's where the frustration comes from, for whether it's Heat fans or NBA fans in general. You're just not sure about what you're going to see. And with Hero out, the margin for error is so much smaller. Whereas, the Bucks are built to sustain a Giannis injury, which is not going to put him out for the entire series like Hero. So I think that's what the difference is in this series. Tyson, let's move into the quick work series here. And there's just, some of these, what can you really say? We really teed it up with the Sixers. They handled business at home, looked dominant. They loafed around, which is what I was worried about. And game 2, and it didn't matter. They covered the 10-point spread. Like, they blitzed them. The Nets were smoking hot, and they were only at 5 at half. Like, that's something. But you always are concerned, like, okay, now the Sixers are going on the road. Like, are they gonna dick around? Like, who knows there? But you had something you want to say about Embiid that kind of opened your eyes too.
Well, it was before the series. I was talking on the show that, like, this guy, he better average 30 and 15 throughout the series. And it turns out, like, this is the first Sixers team in a while where if JoJo's double team, they make shots, and that's a huge deal. And, like, the Nets have been fine, but anytime, no matter who, you could be playing the 96 Bulls, right? And if you're triple teaming somebody else when they have the ball, it's an easy recipe for that team to score. And so they're making some of the Sixers role players look real good right now because there's nobody within 8 feet. And that's fine, because that's the way the Nets have to attack this, or else they're screwed.
And I want to move into the Celtics, Hawks. Not much to say about the Sixers, Nets. Like, the Nets, that should be a sweep.
Shout out Cam Johnson.
Like, yes, sir. This has been a disgusting performance by the Atlanta Hawks. Truly, it's been abysmal. Hard to watch, like, embarrassing. And I know, like, playing on the road, whatever. You can't play like that. It's been no heart, no inspiration. And I got news for you. I know the internet just thinks Trae Young's like this best guy. He's not the best player on his own team. DeJounte Murray proved that he's the best player on his team. And I'm not a Trae Young hater. I actually think he's a good player. we elevated him to the status by some fluky run that the Hawks had when they shouldn't have been there because Ben Simmons doesn't want to score basketball, and we see how his career has gone since then. Beating a very average Knicks team that season. And then now we look at the Hawks, we look at Trae Young like they're supposed to be like the next coming of whoever you want to put in there. The Lakers, the Bulls, like whatever you want to put in there. And that's not the case. The dude's just not built to handle the playoffs. Like if you watch the games, he's driving in, throwing his head back, wanting to get these foul calls. And the more physical playoffs time, he's not going to get those calls, and he's ineffective. He had the worst plus minus on the Hawks in the Celtics game 2 loss. He's not built for the playoffs right now. And I think the Hawks need to have a real deep think about how they want to move this franchise forward. If you want to trade Trae Young, that could be an option. If you want to continue to build things around him, you're going to have to really be honest with yourselves on who fits, what Trae Young's limitations are, because there are limitations with his game. It's not all roses with them. Like they need some serious changes, I think, on this franchise. They need to get tougher. Like it looks like they don't care. Apparently Trae Young posted something, keep the same energy after they got back.
We will.
Right. Like, okay, we'll believe it when we see it, because the Celtics are just knifing them up, making it easy. But this has been a joke, to be completely honest. And I knew it was going to be bad going in. This has been below my expectations. I like it beyond my wildest imagination about how bad the Hawks have looked in this series.
I wish we had like the technical ability to go back and clip our preseason show because I think this is exactly what we were worried about with the Hawks before the season started, right? You pay this ransom for DeJounte Murray, and then like he fits a little bit, but it doesn't actually change who the team is or the makeup of the team. So you just went on that little rant, Brad, and popped a little question in my head. Playoffs only. Jalen Brunson or Trae Young?
Oh, Jalen Brunson.
Yeah. Isn't that weird? Doesn't that feel weird to say? Like it feels like we're committing some sort of law in the basketball Twitterverse is going to come for us. But like in all reality, this dude we wanted him to be Steph Curry so bad. And on offense, like sometimes he's electric and sometimes it's like, holy shit, dude. Like share with somebody else. Like it's nice to watch you huck these things from 40 feet or try to hunt for assists, because he hunts for assists. His assist numbers are inflated. I like Trae Young, but to just think like he has this court vision to lead to 10 assist games over and over and over again. Like he's looking for some. John Collins is the same dude that you handled that Supermax contract to. The exact same concerns you had, still prevalent. And we said it in the pre-show, when your fifth offensive option is the only one you don't have to worry about showing up night over night, you're in trouble. And they happen to run into a team who, in all honesty, Brad, I think Jason Tatum could sit, and I think the Celtics beat the Hawks in a 7-game series.
Especially if Derek White's going to go for 20 on that Swiss cheese defense.
It's free.
It was so bad. And then the last thing I want to say, and again, I want to preface this, like I'm not a Trae Young hater. I know there are a lot of people out there. Like I like Trae Young. Like I don't hate him at all. I'm just pointing out, like if we're going to act like this guy's a top 10 player in the league, which I know some people do, which is crazy to me.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
The guy, when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, watch him if you haven't. He stands at the top of the three-point line, and that's it. Just sits there. Not Curry doesn't do that. Kawhi Leonard, Durant, like you just name the best players in the NBA who do that. You can't, because they don't do that. They play the game. They cut, they move, they set screens for their guys. They try to find mismatches in another way. They don't just wait at the top, try to get the ball back, have the ball stick in his hand and call for a play, a pick and roll. And then, like you said, try to hunt the assists or whatever. Like it's something he has to change his game. Like, because it ain't working right now. If you were actually about winning basketball games, which he says he is, right? Like that's the whole thing. I'm just here to play. I'm just here to win. Like we got bored in the regular season. We love playoffs. Well, you're gonna have to show it, because right now what I'm seeing is somebody who just wants to fill up the stats, collect the check, and then go home. So that's a little Trae Young rant there. And the reason why I'm so upset about it is because I do think he can be. Yeah, I do think he can be an elite player in this league. And he doesn't have the effort to do it right now.
Well, the Hawks are built for Instagram, dude.
You're right.
Like, that's
You're
the
right.
thing. Like, they're built to go viral. They have all the fun clips, and we all freak out, and then 1 or 2 of them make the All-Star team, and nobody's watching ever. Even, like, the Al Horford teams back in the day that were winning 60 games, we weren't watching them, but now we're supposed to be locked in and tuned in on, all the things with Trae Young. Like, dude, they look like the Eastern Conference Dallas Mavericks a little bit, like, with just
Oh,
okay,
for sure.
we have a guy that can, or 2 guys that can score, and the rest of us are just kind of gonna wait until they tell us to do something. And that's just like, look at all the top teams in basketball. It's not how they play.
No. And let's close with this last quick work series here, and we're not have to spend much time on this one, but Nuggets Wolves. Let's split it this way: if the Nuggets play like they did in Game 1 against this T-Wolves team, they're gonna be hard to beat. I mean, just flat out. Like Michael Porter Jr. is gonna give you that. If Jamal Murray looks like he did in the bubble, I mean, Jokic was sitting in the fourth quarter. He didn't do anything on the offensive end. He didn't have to. That team just came out and flat out punched the T-Wolves in the mouth. Karl Anthony Towns was made uncomfortable from the moment they tipped off. And if the Nuggets are going to bring that intensity that Michael Malone wants, they are a legit threat, and they're gonna make people be like, oh wait, maybe we should have taken this team seriously the entire season.
And shout out to the Utah Jazz. Looks like to me that they're going to be getting some lottery picks here in the future. I think the Timberwolves are closer to like just inner explosion than the rest of us think. And there was Rudy half punching Kyle Anderson and then running away the other day. But like I think it's bigger than that. Like this team, they don't look like they give a shit all that much, to be honest with you. But they don't look like winners when they played it. Like they don't look confident. Like Anthony Edwards is always going to have that confidence that like no matter what we do here, I'm going to get 25. And maybe that's not the right attitude for this team because I think Karl Anthony Towns needs to be babied a little bit. Like he has to get going in order for him to be fully engaged. Rudy Gobert needs to be fed shots because he's not getting his own. And it puts him in a really weird spot. And it's the same deal, man. Like you built around bigs in a modern day NBA that like one of them can't even play in the fourth quarter in the playoffs and the other one can't guard even though he's out there. And so now you're playing against the number 1 center in the NBA or number 2, depending on which day of the week it is. I really go back and forth, but like you're screwed. And this is the ceiling for this current edition of the Timberwolves is an 8 seed. Like this isn't, oh, let's let it ride. Next year will be a 5. 2 years down the line will be a 3. The only way that happens is Anthony Edwards becomes Michael Jordan. Like that's it. This team's they're dead.
Yeah, they got a lot to figure out there for the Timberwolves. A big offseason, I think, for them. A really big offseason. They're going to have to make some decisions, and we'll see what it is. I mean, do they even move on from Towns? You know, because they're going to have to get some capital back if they want to build this thing up, man. Like that's something to be seen. But I mean, again, the Nuggets, you know, if they play like they did, watch out. Watch out.
Who matches at best left or not left, I guess, because this is game 2. But who matches at best with the Nuggets in the West? You think
matches up best with the Nuggets? Ooh, man, like gives the Nuggets the hardest matchup.
Yeah,
I think the Clippers might.
I do too.
You know, Zubac's Plumlee to throw at Jokic. I mean, you got some bodies there, and then the wings can make it difficult on Murray. I think the Clippers could give them a run.
It would be fun. That's like. Obviously, I'm sitting here as a Suns fan, so I don't want the Clippers to win the series, but that's a matchup that I really want to see.
And I think it's a bad matchup for the Nuggets if it's the Suns. So a little vice versa there. I mean, I think the Suns could just carve them up, man. Oof.
It'd be fun.
They would. Okay, so that's our first round. So far analysis here. I mean, we're going to have updates, you know, different things. Like we just wanted to give our thoughts so far. We're diving into these NBA playoffs. Where can you find our picks, Tyson, for these playoffs?
They're in the Chalkboard app. You can find it on the App Store, Google Play, wherever you download your apps. The group name is The Roundtable. We have NBA picks in there, obviously. We got a pretty fun golf format this weekend, honestly. It's starting tomorrow, and those will be in there. We have pretty much anything you can think of. Whatever you are betting on, so are we, right? And so we're trying to build a little community. We have a couple people in there posting picks. It's not just Brad and myself. Throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. But Yeah, we are in there every day, right? And so NHL, NBA, NCAA stuff. We have the draft is now 9 days away. If you were in there, you got Bryce Young plus 320 to be your first quarterback off the board. Now he is minus 1,000, so that's some value there. And like, I mean, smokescreen season is here, man. So it's time to read the tea leaves and really start making money because just a fun fact for you, like public is dumb. Like we fall for stuff all the time, and so you really have to dig in there, and you have to check 10 different reports. So let us do the work, post the picks, and if you think we're stupid, fade us. Like it doesn't hurt our feelings to say, "Oh, that's a
Right.
bad bet."
I'm telling, like, my hockey was horrible in the playoffs. I'm telling you, it might be fade Brad season here in the
Yeah.
hockey playoffs. So hoping to get it back on track, but woo, it's been interesting. But in the meantime, like, subscribe, and share the show. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like. Whether you are listening to us on podcast form, send us a 5-star review. Share the show. It really helps us grow and really gets us kind of more discoverable by other people as well. In the meantime, also, contact us on social media. Follow us. Twitter's at TRT_pod. Our Instagram and TikTok handle is at _ the roundtable pod _ if you want to stay connected with us there. Like Tyson said, we've been grinding the NFL draft. We got a ton coming up next week. So we will talk to you all then, unless there's some big breaking news coming in the NFL, which I think might. And so maybe a little off-season off is coming. But we can't wait to grind the NFL draft coming up next week. We will speak to you all guys soon. Peace.